coming out of our freestyle section. I think we want to spend at least a couple of minutes talking about Skip and Shannon Sharpe. Man, this has been interesting. So,
Ooh,
last week, Damar Hamlin, as I am sure all of you
they
know,
get a
uh,
piece of candy for this.
at this time, Damar Hamlin, football player. I think he was on. Does he play for the Bills?
Yep,
I think,
he's for the
yeah, okay,
Bills.
plays for the Bills. Brother's heart gave out while he was on the field. Terrifying. Terrifying. Something that I don't care how hard a hit you've seen. I don't care how long you've been watching football. You've never seen anything like what this brother went through. And I felt like I had to watch that video and see what actually happened. But I absolutely agree with the cries of people saying those videos should be pulled down and that his family should not have to relive that over and over again. But that brother's heart gave out. He fell down, and I believe they had to resuscitate him twice while he was on the field. Never seen that many football players crying all together. I've seen them huddled in prayer. I see them all distraught. Never seen that many football players openly weeping on the field all together before. They were terrified. They thought this brother was about to die. They thought he was already dead. Just absolutely horrible scene, and my heart goes out to his family. From the reports that are coming out right now, it seems like he is going to recover. He's already speaking. Of course, he doesn't have full movement yet, but the brother seems like he's on the mend. So I don't know what hospital he's at, but kudos to the medical staff there and whoever was involved in trying to keep that brother alive. It's definitely deeply appreciated. And shout out to his family. I'm glad that their brother, their son, their cousin. I think he has kids. Their father that he it seems like he's going to pull out of this and that he'll be okay. I saw another podcast, and I'm so sorry I don't remember the name of it, and I don't remember this brother's name, but he talked about considering the amount of time that Damar Hamlin has played, he's actually not entitled to insurance. So it's very possible whatever medically he ends up having to pay that he would have to come out of pocket. And he said what I believe all of us agree with, that that's absolutely insane, and that the NFL not only needs to pay this brother's expenses, but that policy needs to change. They're out there, they're putting their lives on the line. These bodies are colliding day in, day out. The moment you step on that field, the league should be providing insurance to ensure that if something happens to you, you're not financially destitute for the rest of your life. But out of all of this, that exact same night that it occurred, Skip, who is one of the co-hosts on Undisputed with Shannon Sharpe, decides to put out a tweet. And I don't have the exact verbiage in front of me, but basically he starts the tweet saying, this is very, very important game. It definitely seems like the NFL should find a way to continue playing it despite what happens. But then he adds, like towards the end, what's happening to this man is terrible. So what this game now it seems so irrelevant. People completely ignored the second part of that tweet, the part where he said, it's irrelevant. What's happening to this young man is more important. And they absolutely paid attention to that first part, where he basically said that the NFL should continue with the game. Now, it was interesting listening to what Matt Barnes had to say about this, because I think it echoes the perspective of a lot of people who looked at that tweet, where he said he felt like the second part of it was bullshit and that it was just a cover up so that some people would find the overall tweet more acceptable. And that the first part of it is what was really, really on his mind, that the NFL should clear these players off, get that player off the field, and go ahead and continue with the game. And obviously, a lot of people were incensed. Like, I'm used to regular everyday Joe Schmoes coming at Skip, because a lot of people just hate Skip because he says a lot of crazy off the wall things to keep them entertained and keep the ratings high. But this time it wasn't just random folks. You had NFL players, you had broadcasters. The previous vice president of Fox tweeted an expletive laden tirade at him, calling him a piece of shit and saying, I'm disgusted that I'm part of building up the network that pays your bills. Insane, insane. So the Undisputed show starts up the next day. Shannon Sharpe is not there. And no explanation is really provided for why Shannon Sharpe is not there. But everybody can pretty much clearly see that Shannon Sharpe is probably one of the people who's insulted. And he's decided, Skip, you're going to have to handle this on your own. Skip comes out, says that people at the network asked for him to speak on this a little bit. He does. And he pretty much stands on the tweet, does not apologize, does not walk it back, does not take it down, does not do any of that. He basically just says, hey, did feel really personal about what happened, blah, 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 blah. Next day comes, Shannon Sharpe comes back onto the show, and Shannon starts with an opening monologue saying that, hey, I saw my brother paralyzed on the field, and seeing what happened to Damar Hamlin brought me back to that situation. And obviously, I wasn't on the show yesterday. Skip put out that tweet. Hopefully, Skip's going to take it down. Skip interrupts him. Skip makes it clear, like, wait, I'm not going to take it down. And it becomes very apparent that Skip is a little insulted that Shannon Sharpe has brought up the tweet to begin with, because in Skip's own words, nobody at Fox had an issue with me putting out that tweet. To which Shannon immediately remarks, well, the boss has asked you to explain, so clearly people at Fox had an issue with this tweet. They go back and forth a little bit, and then they abruptly cut. It's clear that Shannon is upset and doesn't appreciate the way that Skip spoke to him or the overall situation. A lot of people feel like we're getting close to the end of Undisputed as a show. Hudson, sorry that took so long. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, who was it? Was it Olin Kreutz who was on like some type of show, like for Channel 9 or something. He's on some type of sports show, or maybe for the radio or something.
Olin Kreutz, former center for the Chicago Bears, for those who don't know.
He got into it with one of the other hosts, and I think he grabbed him and kind of threatened him or something. I believe that was
really
Olin Kreutz. Yeah.
Wow.
And he was immediately, of course, they parted ways, him from the show. And I think it's unfortunate because we might be leading down that path with Shannon Sharpe and and Skip here. I think, ever since that Tom Brady thing, that situation where he insulted a Hall of Famer by saying this Hall of Famer was jealous of Tom Brady is why, I think
insanity.
I mean, that it's just, this has been building and building and building. But as far as the tweet, right, there's many reasons to, personally, what I think of Skip, right, is I think he's like that dude that you get him a little tipsy and he all of a sudden comes and asks you, hey, why do y'all have trouble with the N-word? Why y'all hate it when we say the N-word? He seems like that kind of dude, right? He knows he shouldn't ask it, but he'll get a little bit of that liquid courage and he'll ask it, right? Mm-hmm. And for him, that liquid courage is also being on that camera, right? Because if Shannon Sharpe does anything or touches him, that's it for Shannon Sharpe.
Yep.
And that was proven with Olin Kreutz when he had his altercation. It was it for him, right? And then the reports started coming out that he's been a violent man or this, that, or the other. All of a sudden, all that stuff starts coming out to paint him as the aggressor and as the, same thing's going to happen with Shannon Sharpe, right? So he knows he can get away and say all this stuff. They're not going to take him off. They love the ratings, and they're going to keep going with it, right? Until something really just comes to a head here. But I'm going to be honest about this, though, and say that Skip said nothing that is not already ingrained in our American culture right now. We have a work-first culture, right? That is our culture. And, we see all these social media posts, these tweets or whatever, of these people jokingly saying, if you die today, they're going to be looking for your replacement immediately.
Come on now.
And that is true. That's not just a joke, right? We say it jokingly, but we say it jokingly so we can keep from crying about it. It is the absolute truth. We're forced to spend, and we are forced. We are forced because we know if we don't do the overtime, if we don't work ourselves to the bone, we know we're in danger of being replaced. We
That's
know
why,
we're in.
going back to our original conversation when we were talking about Gabrielle Union, that's
Hmm.
why I don't believe in dedicating my life to work. I
Yeah,
don't believe in dedicating myself to this culture that says, "Hey, you've got to work yourself to the bone to make other people rich," and that should be that's how you prove that you're a good citizen, that you're a good person. Nah, fuck all that.
yeah, and that's exactly what it is. They're tugging on all these different feelings that we have that they've ingrained in us about work. They make us feel threatened or ashamed for standing up for rights that we should have at our jobs, right? And
Mhm.
so let's be honest. How long do we think it was before one of those defensive backs that sits on the end of the bench said to himself, I'm going to get some playing time in the playoffs?
Mhm.
How many of those players, once they got out of that stadium that night, started thinking about, I'm in danger of not getting my bonus because we missed out on a whole game, right? Because some of
Mhm.
these players get big bonuses if they hit certain milestones, right? How many of
Right.
these players were thinking about that? How many free agent defensive backs were sitting at home calling their agent and said, hey, the Buffalo Bills are going to need somebody. They're going to need to
Mhm.
fill that spot. I'm sitting at home. It might as well be me. I got a chance
Mhm.
at a ring now.
Right.
How many of them are thinking that? So while we got many reasons to be mad at Skip, and yes, I'm mad he said it, because I don't believe in that work first culture myself. I don't believe in it. Not anymore. I used to.
Mhm.
But when I spent the better part of this past decade in customer service, I can tell you from personal experience, the customer does not give a damn about what's going on. They don't care,
Mhm.
right? I have had situations in one of my jobs. We had an employee died at the job. Every single one of those workers were back there the next day working,
Mhm.
right? And the only thing they got was an email that said, hey, if you want to talk, HR is on standby to have a conversation with you,
Mhm.
right?
Make sure you back on your shift
Yeah,
after that
make sure you back
conversation.
on your shift.
Mhm.
They were looking for somebody. I saw the post go up about the job opening,
Mhm.
right? It don't, I know I had technicians who got into car accidents. Customer says, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Who's going to be coming out now to take care of my?" Yeah, yeah. They
Absolutely.
We are in this culture. It has been created by our love of this capitalism, this
Mhm.
dysfunctional capitalism that we have, this
Yeah.
24/7 need that we created so that we can help keep this capitalism going. No one can get a vacation anymore. No one can even have a holiday off fully.
No.
You know how many times I saw my wife answering work emails on holiday?
Yeah.
You know how many times I've answered work emails or done work on a holiday? So I'm mad at Skip for saying it, but I'm mad at the American culture because he didn't specifically create this.
No.
Skip didn't specifically create it. We all did. We all let it happen when we decided to let them dismantle unions. We
Mhm.
all made it happen when a ton of us, we go after the squeaky wheel and we talk about them and we so quick to try to suck up to get that promotion that we talk about the person who's actually trying to fight for all of our rights.
Yeah.
You know,
It was funny when, again, I'm so sorry I can't remember the name of the podcast, but when that brother talked about that Damar Hamlin wouldn't have insurance, the other people on the podcast mentioned, well, this is a problem with the Players Association, the union for the NFL, because they should have fought for the right for him to have this. So you really should be blaming them. And he stopped them and he said, no, no, you don't
mhm,
have to force me to do what I know is right. You don't have to force me to take care of people that are working for me. The NFL not taking care of its players and not making sure that they're properly insured is a problem with the NFL. And it's absolutely ingrained in our culture that we just do not respect unions. We do
Hmm.
not respect the idea of people coming together and fighting for worker rights. And honestly, a lot of times we put entrepreneurs, business owners, big time corporations, we put them on a pedestal and basically say no matter what they do, no matter what impact it has on the people, no matter what impact it has on the country, hey, it's just business. And if it's
Right.
business, that means it's automatically good. Like honestly, some of this is bringing me back to what's the name of the sixth, the big one who's a comedian who ended up going back and forth with like Oprah and Lee Daniels and all of them. What's her Monique? Is that her name?
Oh, Monique.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. When she was going back and forth with Charlemagne the God because she said Netflix under was purposefully underpaying her, was
Mhm.
basically not giving her the money that she felt like she was due for a special, especially in comparison to other people. And her point was that she stood up for herself on other projects and that essentially it was these white executives and a lot of them were using other black people to hold her down, to bring
Mhm.
down her price, to say that hey, you should not work with this particular individual and basically punish her and say hey, you've got to play ball if you want to make money in this industry. And she communicated this on the Breakfast Club, and Charlemagne the God's response was, well, Netflix is just doing good business. Like they know that your price has come down to this level, so that's what they're going to pay you. Like to me, this is just smart business. I don't understand why you're complaining. And I'm looking at that like, bro, like she just told you that white supremacists are essentially trying to hold her down. And your answer is, well, it's good business, so you should just roll with it. No,
Mhm.
no, that's not how it works. But I absolutely agree with you. That is the culture of our country, that it's all about work, that the business owner and the people who have money, they reign supreme, and that you should just adapt to whatever they do because whatever they do is just good business. It's just good
Right.
business, y'all. So go ahead and accept
Yeah,
it. And it's
and let's be
sad. It's
yeah,
sad.
and let's be clear. Who the folk who, because I think I remember seeing that interview. They weren't sitting at the table during negotiations between the players' union and the NFL.
No.
They don't know how hard the players' unions had to fight. So you're gonna make this assumption that since they don't have these specific safeguards in place, that they obviously didn't fight for it or they didn't fight hard enough for it. That's ridiculous. Unless you were
Crazy.
there, which you
Mhm.
probably weren't, you don't know what they fought for. And secondly, unless you think that the players union is corrupt, because that's another stereotype that people do have about unions. They think all unions are corrupt,
Mhm.
right? Unless you really think that they are corrupt, well, if that's the case, you, 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 if they're not corrupt, then you're basically doing victim blaming. Is what
Mhm.
you're doing. That's victim
Mhm.
blaming because the
Mhm.
players' union is made up of the players who are the
Mhm.
victim of this.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say one more thing on this, right? All the fans who have ever tweeted, sent a Facebook post out, or Instagram complaining and talking about how the NFL isn't the same.
Mhm.
They coddle these quarterbacks, right? Or they, I think even Kevin Hart did a little comedy skit with some of the guys from, was it CBS, or I can't remember which ones, where I think one of the guys picked him up as the quarterback, laid him down, put a blanket over him, put a pillow under him. That's how you got to
Absolutely.
sack the quarterback, right?
Absolutely.
We've sat here. I've seen a lot of games where I watched Justin Fields take some hell of a hits
Mhm.
and not get any calls of roughing the pass or any of that. They are
Mm.
taking incredible hits out there, and even if they can't link any specific hit to what happened to this young man, right? He's been playing probably pee wee football. He's been probably playing football since what, 5, 6 years old.
Mhm.
How many hits has he taken over the years? You probably can't pinpoint any one hit that may have helped this along or did this,
I love
right?
football. I'll continue watching it. I would not advocate for any of my children becoming football players. I just
Yeah,
wouldn't.
yeah.
I just wouldn't.
It's crazy. So I it's very offensive to even mention that the players union didn't fight hard. We don't know what they fought, but how
Yeah.
hard they fought. Just as hard as the union would fight is just as hard as the ownership is going to fight not to give that concession.
And the
Right?
ownership has clearly fought hard.
Yeah, yeah. They've clearly fought
Clearly.
hard. You
Um,
know.
to circle back to Skip and Shannon, though, an interesting take on this that I saw was from Marcellus Wiley, who I don't think he's a host anymore, but he used to host on the show on Fox Sports. And he said that the reason for the splintering of their relationship has nothing to do with that Tom Brady conversation. And it's not really about Skip's tweet either. He said, what you're watching is two alphas fighting for position. He said when Shannon Sharpe came into Fox Sports, Skip was clearly top dog. Like Shannon was known, but he wasn't really respected in the way that he is now. And now you're seeing a Shannon Sharpe who a lot of people believe doesn't need Skip anymore. Could do just as well with another co-host. And honestly, he has his own podcast, which is doing very, very well. So there's a case to be made that Shannon Sharpe doesn't need a co-host, period, and that he'd be completely fine on his own. And so Marcellus Wiley feels like what you're seeing is Skip trying to reassert his dominance to try to say, hey, I'm still that guy. I'm still top dog. I still control this space. And Shannon has not taken it from me. And in a lot of ways, it's not working. And the
Mhm.
interesting thing about this is Marcellus Wiley put that on Twitter and Shannon Sharpe liked the post, adding
Right.
adding even more credibility to it. So I don't know. It's just interesting to see how that dynamic has changed. Regardless of what the truth is, I think Skip handled both situations horribly in a
Mhm.
way that has really damaged his credibility. And Matt said something that I found shocking. That I don't feel like I've heard Matt Barnes speak about a person in this way before ever. But he said somebody's going to hurt Skip. He said directly he feels like he said that there's already been a couple of situations where he personally had to step in and connect folks with Shannon Sharpe so that Shannon could try to talk him down and settle this out and smooth this out. But there have already been multiple situations where people, based on the things that Skip said on national TV, said, no, he's got to see me. He's got to see me. And when he sees me, it's going to be a problem. And it's definitely Matt Barnes' perspective that these things that Skip is doing is not just having an impact on his relationship with Shannon Sharpe or even his public persona. He's putting himself almost in harm's way. He's putting himself in a position where he could actually be physically harmed.